Hello and welcome back to our channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make the best Black Forest cake ever. This cake changed my opinion on, I want to say cakes altogether, but definitely Black Forest cake, because I used to think I didn't like it. I always thought it was dry. The whipped cream was weird and off. I don't know how, it just never tasted good to me. But this cake is amazing, and this is actually one of my absolute favorite cakes now. I am so excited to be sharing the recipe with you, and we're going to be showing you how we decorate it as well. So let's get right into it. We're going to start by mixing all of the dry ingredients first. So I'm going to start with flour here. We're just going to add this all to one bowl. Our granulated sugar, cocoa powder, we have a little bit of espresso powder, baking powder, baking soda, a little bit of salt. And now I'm just gonna whisk this together until it's just evenly incorporated. We're gonna get a larger bowl here, and we're just gonna add all of our wet ingredients to one bowl, and then we're gonna mix it together. We're gonna start with some sour cream. Oops. Buttermilk, plain oil here. I'm using vegetable oil. A little bit of vanilla extract, and then we're gonna do 2 large eggs, ideally that have been sitting at room temperature. Now I'm just gonna whisk this all together. Kind of like to start by breaking up my egg yolks and just whisk it until it's smooth. Okay. All right, and now I'm gonna add my dry ingredients to the wet, and I'm just gonna sift it into the wet just to avoid any big clumps. I've got quite a few clumps in there, and some of them even look like salt actually, so it's a pretty good thing that we did this. And for this, you can either press it through or just set it aside. And now we just wanna whisk this together until it's smooth. And now we are going to add a half a cup of hot coffee to our cake mix. So I have just grabbed a separate bowl and a scale, and then I'm going to weigh out the total amount of batter. So my total weight of all the batter is 12,080 grams. Divide that by 3. Each cake round is gonna have 426 approximately grams. I have 3 Fat Daddio 8-inch round cake pans. So we're just gonna put this on the scale and even it out. I sprayed all the pans really well with cooking spray, and then I lined it with parchment paper at the bottom. Once I'm done pouring the batter, I'm going to place my cake rounds on a cookie sheet and pop them in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So we just took our cakes out of the oven. They were in there for exactly 20 minutes and they were perfect. So we have them back there just cooling, and we're going to prepare our whipped cream next. I don't know if you can tell, but I did pop my bowl and the whisk in the freezer for a few minutes. This just ensures that our whipped cream actually stabilizes and gets firm, because sometimes if it's too warm, it will just never whip into peaks. We're gonna start with 1 liter of whipping cream. Okay, and now because this is gonna be kind of a tall cake, we need a little bit of structure to the whipped cream, otherwise it might just end up falling everywhere. So we have a little bit of whipped cream stabilizer here. So we're mixing that in with our powdered sugar. And we're gonna add in a little bit of water to this with our vanilla as well. And we're just gonna mix this together. So this is our stabilizer we actually got from one of our suppliers when we had our bakery. So just use basically whatever your instructions are. This is us following the instructions on our package, but you can use gelatin, whatever stabilizer you go with. Make sure that you use enough for 1 liter of heavy cream. But it does feel a little bit wrong putting a liquid into a whipped cream, but we're just gonna go for it. And now we just fold it in, and that's literally exactly what I'm doing, is folding the whipped cream. So I'm not stirring it in, but very gently folding it. the whipped cream is done, we're gonna cover this up and put this in the fridge until we're ready to decorate our cake. We have our cake round here. I'm going to center this on. So our layer assembly is going to start with some Kirsch. This is basically a cherry liqueur. And then I just like to spread this generously over the cake. It basically just adds a bit of depth in the flavor. And we're gonna go in with our whipping cream next. So I'm gonna start with a basically kind of thin, even layer of whipping cream. And just spread that evenly across the cake. I'll do maybe like 2 scoops here. Okay. And then I'm gonna pipe our border around the cake. So this is gonna make sure that we have a dam so that our cherries do not explode on the outside. So now it is time for our third layer, and this is our cherry pie filling. This is delicious in this cake. I'm just gonna scoop this in here. I also want to point out that you definitely want to go slightly heavy-handed on the cherries if you can, because this is like a really delicious part of the cake. It kind of balances the cake evenly, so you really don't want to skimp on this part. This is essential, really. So I've used about half the can because we're going to do one more layer of this in the cake. All right, now we are ready for our second layer of cake. I'm just gonna fast forward this part for you. I'm going to soak the next layer of cake with more Kirsch. Then top it off with an even layer of whipped cream. Next, I'm going to pipe a dam around the edge, and that's going to hold in our next layer of cherries. At this point, be sure to save a few cherries for decorating the top of the cake. Now we are ready for our final layer of cake. I'm going to place this very carefully on top. Don't forget to brush the top layer of your cake with Kirsch as well. And check that the edges are even and aligned. Now I'm going to show you how we go from this to this. I'm going to start with a crumb coat of whipped cream, making sure all those crumbs are locked in. This part does not have to be perfect. Using an offset spatula, I scrape down the sides of the cake and make sure the top is evenly coated. At this point, you can pop this in the fridge to set, but we don't have time for that today. So we are going to go straight in with our final layer of whipped cream. For the last step here, I smooth the edges with a cake scraper. I then scrape off the extra whipped cream on the cake board and clean it with a paper towel. Next, I go in with the Wilton 1M piping tip to decorate the top of the cake. I use a pushing and pulling motion to create this design. Let the whipped cream flow out while holding the bag relatively still, and then swipe it down towards the center of the cake. Repeat this all the way around. Then I go in with a second layer, working in between the first ribbons. And finally, I add a few to the center to complete the look. How pretty is that? I want this cake to look like a Black Forest cake, but with a bit of my own twist. I decided to lightly dust the top of my cake with cocoa powder. Then I move on to adding the chocolate curls to the side of the cake, which is an absolute must for Black Forest. Next, I'm using the leftover cherries I set aside earlier, and I'm delicately placing those on the top. For the finishing touch, I added a little bit more chocolate shavings around the edges of the cake and the center. This just brought the whole look together. I absolutely love how this turned out. It looks so decadent. So there you have it, the perfect, most amazing, delicious Black Forest cake ever. We are not going to be slicing into this tonight because it's actually my dad's birthday tomorrow, so this is his birthday cake. It's his favorite cake ever. But we just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.